For this video, what we're going to look at is Chapter 1 in the statistics book, and this is going to be an introduction to statistics, and it'll be a lot of definitions, but they will be very important definitions for our later chapters. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we want to do is think about what is statistics. Statistics is the study of data. When we study data, we want to collect it, we want to organize it, we want to summarize it, then we can analyze and draw conclusions from it. When I mean data, I'm talking about different sets of data that we collect, whether it be off of applications, through different surveys, anything of that nature. Anything that we can record is types of data that we're going to be looking at. And what we're going to be doing in this course is just studying that with the collection, organization, summarizing. What we mean by a variable is a characteristic or attribute that can be assigned to different values. Meaning a variable would be such as hair color. It has different values. You can have black hair color, red hair color, brown hair color, blonde. So hair color is a variable. Height is also a variable because it takes on different values. So anything that we're looking at with different values is considered a variable. Even such as in the college setting, different majors. If we want to analyze a major, the major is considered the variable, and the different majors are considered the data points. The values that a variable can assume are called data, such as, like I just said, the different types of majors. Nursing is a data point. Mathematics is a data point because those are different types of majors that we can have. There are two different things that we look at when we're studying data. A population is the entire group that is being studied. It consists of all subjects that are being studied, which means if I want to look at students at Grayson College, the population would be all students at Grayson College. A sample is just a small subset of that, meaning the people that I can actually survey, the people that I can actually pick up. It's a smaller sample of that. Let's look at what this would look like. So normally what I do is I draw this big thing here, and this is going to be my population. Okay. And then over here, I'm going to take out a small piece of this and put it over here, and that is actually my sample that I can actually look at a little bit better. So I've pulled out this small piece of my population, and it becomes my sample that I look at. It's just a smaller subset of it. And then I'm going to draw this arrow back over here. The reason I'm going to draw this arrow back over here is because there are two different types of statistics. The first type of statistics is called descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics is where we're actually describing what we know, the mean, the median, the mode, the average, just looking at the data, what do we actually know? And that comes about when we actually observe the sample. The other type of statistics is called inferential statistics. Inferential statistics is where we look at our sample information and we make some type of prediction back onto the population. So we're going to take what we know about the sample and go back and predict what it means about the population. And I realize that this may not make much sense right now. It will in later chapters, things of that nature. But what we're trying to look at is, okay, are we looking at descriptives? Meaning, is it regarding the sample? Do we know this information? Or is it inferential? Is it some type of prediction or something along that line? So again, descriptive statistics is ways of describing our data. This is the part of statistics where we're going to collect, we're going to organize, summarize, and present our data. If you recall back where I gave you the definition of statistics, I said that we were going to do several different things to it. And the first three were collect, organize, and summarize. Well, those are areas of descriptive statistics. The other type is, again, inferential statistics. This is where we're making predictions based on our data. It's generalizations from the samples to the population. Remember me drawing the arrow back from the sample to the population. We're estimating and forming hypothesis testing. Is something true? Could it be true based on the information? We're also going to determine, are there relationships among variables? Meaning, could one affect the other one? Is there some type of relationship? Is it strong? Is it weak? Things along those lines. And then also, we're going to make those predictions back onto the population. That is our inferential statistics that we're looking at. When we look at these, there are types of variables. The first is our qualitative variables. These are also categorical. For example, these are variables that are answered in words, such as eye color and hair color, or your major, because we're going to answer those in word format. So those are types of categorical or qualitative variables. They have a quality to them. The other type versus qualitative is the quantitative. Those that are numerical, numbers, okay? Underneath the quantitative can be broken into two different categories. The first is discrete, meaning it is countable. What I mean by countable is it's whole numbers. How many books do you have in your backpack? You have a set number 1, 2, 3, 4 books in your backpack. You don't have half a book in your backpack. How many pens do you have in your backpack? You have a set number of pens in your backpack. You don't have that partial amount. If it's not discrete, it's going to be continuous. These are the ones that can be decimals, fractions. These are like your temperatures, your heights, your weights. So, like I said, temperature, your height, your weight, because we have 5'3", we have 5'4", we have a temperature of 98.6, 99.1, things like that. Those are continuous because we can have something intermittently. Again, our discrete types are the ones such as number of pens that we have in our backpack, or the number of books that we have, or the number of people that we have, because we can't have half a person when we're talking about things like in this nature. Okay, so those are the different types of variables. First, you're going to decide, is it the qualitative or quantitative? In other words, do I answer it with a category or do I answer it with a number? If I answer it with a number, is it going to be countable? So it's going to be discrete. Or is it going to be in decimal form and therefore continuous? Now then, looking at this screen, there are 4 different levels of measurement. The first level of measurement is what we call nomial. Nomial labels our data. These are non-overlapping categories. There's no order or ranking. If you notice, I have up there gender, eye color, college, major. Again, this is for your categorical, your qualitative variables. That order is not going to matter, okay? Then the second level of measurement is ordinal. It is still a type of categorical data, but we're going to have rankings, such as your letter grades, meaning A, B, C, D, or our judging's first, second, third place. So both of these, ordinal and nominal, are for categories, okay? These are for your categorical data or your qualitative data. One, you're going to be putting things in order. That's your ordinal. And one, you're not going to be putting it in order. So that's your nominal. Now, if we move over to what I would consider the quantitative side of our levels of measurement, would be this side. We have interval measurement, where it's a precise math value, but it can go below 0. For example, temperature. It can be -3 degrees outside. It can also be 108 degrees outside. It also depends on, are we talking about degrees Fahrenheit, degrees Celsius? So the 0 doesn't have much value to us in temperature as it does in other places. Same thing with the SAT score and the IQ score. A 0 doesn't really make much sense to us. So we don't worry about the zeros in this case, therefore it is intervals. Ratio, we can't go below 0. The 0 means something to us, such as in height, weight, age. Remember, we cannot have a negative height or a negative weight or a negative age. So they're ratios. That 0 means something. So we're going to have in the quantitative levels of measurement, does the 0 matter or not? If the 0 doesn't seem to matter and we can go below it, that is going to be interval. If the 0 matters and we cannot go below it, that is going to be the ratio. Let's look at some examples. And I gave you some of these earlier. Hair color is nominal. It's a category. So this is quantitative, and order does not matter. Same thing with zip code. It is I apologize. These are qualitative, not quantitative, so that these are qualitative. These are qualitative, and order does not matter. Letter grade is still qualitative, but there's going to be order. Okay. ACT, those are numbers, so that's quantitative. And we don't really have that zero, magic zero there. So this one is the no zero one. Height is again quantitative, but we do have zero matters. Age is quantitative and zero matters. Temperature is quantitative. We have a zero, but we can go below zero. So we can go below zero. So notice how I've marked these, and maybe that will help you with looking and deciding what level of measurement they are when you're going through and trying to decide, is this a nominal or is this an ordinal? Is it interval? Is it ratio? Things of that nature. There are 4 types of methods of sampling, how we actually go about getting our data, how we can sample people. The first type is completely random sampling, meaning everybody has the same chance, equal chance of being selected. Most of the time this comes where we have random number generators. So anytime we're looking at this, each person is equally likely of being selected. I will admit it is extremely hard to get a completely random sample in true data collection, unless you're doing the random number generator. Now for your problems, things like that, it will usually tell you that they were randomly selected, so that will be a clue that it was a random sampling method. The second type is systematic. What this means is we're going to assign and say we're going to choose every, say, 10th person that comes through the door. You've heard of different things that happen. Every 100th customer gets a reward, or the 1000th person gets this or something. Those are systematic. So people are coming through the door and we're going to choose the 10th person, every 10th person. So that means we're going to choose the 10th person, the 20th person, the 30th person, in those intervals of tens, and they're going to be selected to do our survey or to be chosen or whatever we're looking at. So it's every kth person, depending upon, do we want every 10th person, 100th person, etc., and go from there. So these are 2 types of sampling techniques. We have 2 more types. One type is stratified. Stratified, what we're going to do is we're going to divide people into groups and then randomly choose a sample from each group. What I mean by that is, let's say that we have people in the freshman class, in the sophomore class, the junior class, and the senior class. Okay, and I'm going to say that there's 4 people in each class. So I've broken up into groups, and then I'm going to randomly select somebody equally from each group. So in stratified, you're broken up into groups, and then somebody from each group is selected. So each group is represented equally. Now then, in cluster sampling, we're still divided up into groups, such as our freshmen, our sophomore, our juniors, and our seniors. And I'm going to have, let's say, 4 people in each class right now. But this time, we're going to choose whole groups to sample. Meaning, I'm going to randomly select these 2 groups to sample. The difference between stratified and cluster is that in both of them I have everybody broken up into groups, just like I did in both areas. In stratified, each group is represented. In cluster, I choose a cluster, or I choose a group, choose the entire group. So I'm clustering who I'm choosing from. And so that's what I'm kind of looking at when I'm talking about whether it's stratified or cluster. So remember, there are 4 different types of sampling that I've talked about so far. And they were random sampling, they were systematic, and remember, systematic was where we chose every 10th person or 11th person that came through the door. Then there was the stratified. We broke people up into groups and then chose somebody from each group. And then there was cluster sampling, where we still broke people up into groups, but then I chose an entire group to be sampled. So there's 4 different types of sampling that we're going to look at this semester. Now, there's 2 different studies that we kind of look at: observational versus experimental. Observational is just that. We sit back and we observe. We draw conclusions based on what we observe. This is how psychologists do a lot of their stuff. They sit back and watch people. It's great, people watching. We do a lot of observational studies of that nature. Experimental study is what biologists do and chemists do and everything. We draw conclusions based on that experiment. Politicians do both. Politicians observe the outcomes of elections and also the trends of what's happening, but then they also go out and ask questions and see what's happening in the financial realm, things of that nature. And so they do a little bit of both. Again, observational is just doing what it says, observing. Experimental studies is we draw conclusions based on experiments. So this is your chapter 1. I realize it was a lot of definitions, but if you can get a grasp of some of the definitions and things, especially the population versus sample, it will help a lot in later chapters. Now get ready for chapter 2. That will be broken more up into sections, but if you have questions, please come see me.